It has been reported by Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times that Todd Bowles will be returning as head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the 2023 season. Joining me today talking about this topic is Evan Wanish of BucsNation.com and the co-host of the Cannon Fire podcast and the host of the Real to Real podcast. So Evan, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's been a little bit since I've been on, so happy to be back.
Happy to have you here. Now, Evan, let's just get to brass tacks, man, okay? Now, following the admittedly humiliating loss to the Cowboys in the wild card round of the playoffs just a little over 24 hours ago, or about 24
Give or
hours
take.
ago, give or take, a lot has happened, right? A lot of people have been upset at the coaching staff. The Bucs have already been expected to make some changes with the firing of offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, according to PewterReport.com. Also, possibly a overhaul of the offensive coaching staff, but there have also been a lot of people who have been complaining about Todd Bowles, saying that he should be fired as well. The Buccaneers need to make that move, but a report from Rick Stroud a couple of days ago says otherwise, that Todd Bowles will be returning as the team's head coach for next season. And I wanted us to talk about this today because it comes after that game where there is going to be that speculation there. So, Evan, what are your thoughts on that entire situation there regarding Bowles, the complaints that people have, the firing of Byron Leftwich, and all those different things relating to that type of move?
Yeah, to me it's not surprising that they're likely to retain him if you look at the Glazers' history. They have never fired a coach after just one season. Lovie Smith went 2-14, didn't make the playoffs, got the number one pick, and they kept him for another season. So guys like Dirk Cutter, Greg Schiano, Raheem Morris all got more than one season, and none of those guys made the playoffs. So really not a surprise that Todd Bowles is expected to be retained. I know some people were maybe hoping, well, since they got blown out, because that report was obviously before the playoff game. So maybe that's changed. And I guess you can't say there's a 0% chance. Like I would say it's very, very, very unlikely, but I wouldn't say it's impossible for the Glazers to have a change of heart, but I would be pretty shocked at this point. So it's not a surprise. I think obviously Bowles deserves some scrutiny for sure, because the performance of the team this year at some point it has to fall on the head coach as well. But it's certainly not a surprise that this news that he's expected to be back. I do think though he's not going to be completely safe entering 2023. Like I think he's still going to have to win some football games in 2023 to keep his job after that. But for now, it's pretty unsurprising that he's back.
Yeah, and folks, just to kind of piggyback off what Evan said here, look, at the end of the day, yeah, it's not necessarily surprising. I mean, when you look at the circumstances and we just look at it from a business aspect, look, if anybody was going to be the fall guy, it was going to be a guy like Byron Leftwich on the coaching staff, right? I think that despite the criticism, and I do believe there is a fair amount of criticism to be had, right, with Bowles and some of the decisions that he made this year, and the playoff game going the way it did, the entirety of the season just being a slog. One thing that you can say is that technically this, or not even technically, this isn't even a Todd Bowles coaching staff, essentially. He inherited this coaching staff from Bruce Arians real late in the game, and we don't know what, essentially Todd Bowles would have done if he would have had a full off season under his belt with the coaching staff. So realistically, if you look and the Glazers say, Todd Bowles, what's going on? Why did the Bucs go 8-9 and lose in the wild card round? Todd Bowles can easily say, well, look at the offense. We were 25th in scoring. We big drop off. Da 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 da. I mean, the defense did fine for the most part, and I don't know about that Byron Leftwich guy. I mean, if you guys let me pick my staff, let me get a staff under my belt and an OC that I want, I think that we can do things better. That's how the
Mhm.
business of the NFL works, Evan. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think in this case for sure, where Bowles is gonna point to that and be like, look, like, let me get a different offensive coordinator in here, regardless of whether Brady is back, and see if I can make this work. Obviously, The big thing here is Tom Brady, right? And you're going to have a bunch of time to speculate about that, but a lot changes, and with whether he comes back or not. And with that, the expectations for next year will also change. So, I think, yeah, Todd Bowles is going to look at it and say, look, like with or without Brady, like hopefully our offense at least looks better than it did last year. Like, let me get this new offensive coordinator. I'm going to remove, this coach, this coach, this coach, and this coach, replace them with these guys and see how it works. Yeah, I mean, even like some of the defensive side is Todd Bowles, because I think Bruce Arians allowed him to carry over some guys that he wanted. More specifically, Casey Rogers, who's the co-defensive coordinator with Larry Foote. Casey Rogers was Bowles' defensive coordinator while with the Jets, so definitely a Bowles connection there. Yeah, but as far as the offensive staff goes, yeah, Todd Bowles didn't pick any of those guys. So I think when he's meeting with the Glazers, and Jason Lay at the end of the year, you're going to look to that and say, well, if I can get a chance to get a different staff in here, then see how it works. And to be fair, does he deserve that? Yeah, probably. I think he probably deserves that because yes, it's not his handpicked guy. Byron Leftwich wasn't his handpicked guy, but I do think though Todd Bowles is pretty fortunate that they did enough to make the playoffs. Because if they hadn't made the playoffs, I think there would be a lot more like legit heat on him to possibly lose his job. But I think, like you said, he has that card to play, and I think he's going to play it, and that's probably the last card he's got. Though it's he's got to get it right.
Yeah, and that's a big thing you just said there at the end. He's got to get it right. And I think for Bowles to have sustainable success in 2023, it relies on two big things. Number one, who's he going to bring in as his offensive coordinator? And we're going to be making a lot of videos talking about that, Evan, both me and you. So that's the first thing. You got to bring in a respectable offensive coordinator. Will Todd Bowles be able to do that? We'll have to wait and see. But number two is you got to bring in a quarterback. You've got to give yourself a chance on the offensive side. Now, is that going to be Brady? We have no idea. If it's not going to be Brady, and we won't know for a while, Evan, whether or not it will or won't be Tom Brady, but if it isn't, it's a lot of pressure on that type of situation then. So those are two very, very big decisions. And we'll have to wait and see. If Todd Bowles can make the correct decisions to give himself a legitimate chance to show improvement. Would you say next year's maybe a playoffs or bust type of situation for Bowles?
Um, it's tough because if Brady's here, yeah. If Brady's the quarterback, then yeah, the expectation. If Brady's here and they have a similar season like they did this year, even with making the playoffs, I don't know if his job's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Brady's here, they need to be like legit good. And I'm not saying they have to win the Super Bowl, but like a winning record at least, like I think they would have to have. So if Brady's not here, I don't know. I don't know if playoffs would be the case. Now, you also don't know what the rest of the roster would look like. That's just one position. If Brady's not here, does Levante David, come back? If he doesn't come back, I mean, that's a big piece of the defense gone. So if they only win 6 games, is that enough? Like, I don't know. I do think there's going to be heat on Todd Bowles regardless coming into the 2023 season. Like, I think he's going to if they only win 4 games, I don't think he's going to be back. But I do think the expectations are going to be very different depending on who's under center and who they bring back or who they add in free agency or whatnot. So that's a tough question to answer right now because there's too many unknowns.
For sure. So, folks, look, at the end of the day, I know a lot of people are probably going to be a little bit upset by this news because of what happened in the wild card game and how this was just a really long season. Look, but at the end of the day, it's not surprising when you boil it down. When you look at things and just how they happen around the league. Like, heck, the Chargers just went through a situation like this with Brandon Staley. Where they fired their offensive coordinator as a fall guy type of situation, and they decided to retain the head coach. So at the end of the day, look, Bowles is staying around. It's not that surprising, all things considered, and we'll just have to see if he can make the correct improvements. And that all starts with finding the right offensive coordinator and just really the offensive staff in general, and try and figure out that situation at quarterback, be it with or without Tom Brady. So Folks, let us know your thoughts and opinions. We would love to hear them. Go check out Evan's work over at BucsNation.com. Go check out his podcasts over at the Can of Fire podcast and the Real to Real podcast as well, both here on YouTube. And Evan, before we head off, do you have any final words?
No, it's you pretty much covered it. Check out my written work at Bucs Nation. I have 2 articles up right now, both kind of about Tom Brady, talking about potential destinations for Tom Brady, ranking them not necessarily in likelihood, but like where I think he'd be best. And then the other one is my 3 burning questions, the offseason edition. So I know there is more than one, more than 3 burning questions, I should say, but I try my best to pick out 3. So go check them out on BucsNation.com.
Well, there you go, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. We will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.